Hi, my name is Brian. Today I'll be going over a lab for Linux under Google Cybersecurity Professional Certificate course. There are two parts to this lab. I will be doing the one that's demonstrated here, but I do have another one on the side that I'll print instructions on for the second part of the lab. But for now, I guess I'm going to go over what I did here. Scenario, we must examine and manage the permissions on the files for the projects directory and researcher 2 and home. So let's move on. First, we want to navigate to the projects directory as I've done here. So pwd tells us where we are. We're already in projects currently, but if you wanted to go there, we would just do change directories, home, researchers 2, projects. Then we would list the contents of the projects directory. You could still do that now. We would do ls. So everything that's openly available inside the projects directory. So these are just some questions that you can answer. Change file permissions. So they want us to change. First, they want us to check whether any files have write permissions. So how would we do that? We would do an ls command, but ls doesn't necessarily tell us all the commands right away. So what we would have to end up doing is ls minus l. And this would give us all the permissions that are right here listed on the side. So it's asking for if any owners have write permissions. So when you look at permissions in Linux, there's a 10 string of characters. The first one is either typically a D, which stands for directory. If it's not a directory, it'll just be a hyphen like the rest of these. But since this is the directory, this one's listed under D. And then the following 9 are almost like 3 combined substrings. They could either compose of R, W, or X in that order. R standing for read, W standing for R, or W standing for write, and X standing for execute. And that would be specific to whichever column it's in. This would be for the user itself. This would be for the group or anyone else that also has access to the file. This would be general group permissions. And then this would be for other in Linux. So as of right now, write permissions for the other owner type. Write permissions would be project k.text. So we move on. The file project them is a restricted file and should not be readable or writable by the group or another user. Only the user should have these permissions. So what they want us to do is restrict project M to writable by a group or other. So let's look at project M. I've already done that, but essentially what you would do, you would use a chmod. You would subtract W. Subtract W from, depending on whether it's U for user, G for group, or O for other. You would subtract, in this case, since it is readable or writable, you would subtract R from O and W from O. And that would inherently take out those permissions for the other class for project M specifically. So as you can see, I've already done that here. There are no read or write permissions for project M. That's already been done. Let's move on. Check the permissions of the hidden file project X, and it's the question that follows. So as for hidden files, you do the command ls minus la. It gives us these secrets, secret files. As you can see here, you don't see it, but in this specific context, you could see .projectx.txt. This is a hidden file. So we move on. They want us to also change the permissions of the file. This one I will do live. I haven't done it yet. So we would do chmod. They want us to change so that the user and the group can read but not write. So currently, as of right now, the user can read and write, but we want to give the group read permissions and take away the write permissions. So let's take away the writing permissions for the user as well. So we do w minus u for .projectx .text. Or I think I did it backwards, sorry. Chmod u minus w dot project x dot text. Same thing for the group. We want to remove the writing. It would be dot project x dot text. Then we also want to give project x. We also want to give them read permissions. So how do we do that? We do chmod. We group plus reading. R for reading. Dot text. So then if we look at the perms for the directory once more, ls minus la, project x, they both have read permissions, but they do not have writing permissions as we have wanted. So we could change directory permissions also. How would we do that? We want to change the directory permissions for drafts. So first off, where are we right now? We're in projects. So I actually want to go back home or change directories actually. Researcher 2. Let's see, projects, drafts. So if we pwd this, we're in drafts. Check the permissions of the draft directory. So let's see the permissions. Go ls. Oh, sorry. Wait, I already made a mistake. So here we see the drafts. See we have DWRX. So here we have the drafts directory. We have that it's a directory, read, write, X, and then we have the executive perm for the group user. And wants us to remove the executive permission from the group from the drafts directory. So how do we do that? Let's go back to home. So let's just check the drafts directory. The path is labeled right here. Just deleted some code just to make it look a little bit cleaner. But here we have, so we change directories from drafts back to researcher 2 to projects again. So we're going to be editing project drafts from projects itself. If we pwd this, we're back in projects. So let's just do, first let's check the perms for everything. Let's do lsla. As you can see with drafts, we have that it's a directory. It's a subdirectory of projects. The user has read, write, and execute permissions, and the group only has execute permissions. But it wants us to remove that. So what does that look like? We would do chmod. We would do g for group minus x. Then it's the drafts directory, so we want to do drafts. Let's see how this came out. ls minus la, and we removed the executive permissions from drafts itself. All right, awesome. So now I want to move on to the portfolio activity, so we're going to clear this again. So for the first step, they want us to go back to the projects directory, pwd. As you can see, I'm still on it. So let's check for the perms with lsla. They're listed here. Describe the command you can use to check permissions. That would be lsla, as we've used before. Describe the permission string. So as you described before, the permission string would basically be a 10 string sequence composed of characters. So first one would either be a D for directory, and if it's not a directory, it would be replaced by a hyphen. Um, Moving on, we have the 9 subsets that make up the 10 character string, which would be read, write, and execute permissions. The first 3 would define them for the user, the next would define them for the group, and the last would remain them for the other class. Moving on to step 5, we have change file permissions. So organization does not allow others to have writing access to any files. So let's see any files that might have writing. We have a lot of them right here. So let's see. We don't want any others to have writing permissions. So as of right now, we have Project K. It's a really good candidate to get that writing permission removed. So how would we do this? We would do other minus writing. I want to do that for Project K, since it's the only one with a effective write permission in the other category. Oh, I misspelled it, so let's spell it right this time. K.txt. I've spelled it right this time. So if you do ls minus la, there's now no file in the directory that has writing permissions for other. Awesome. Let's go to change files permissions on a hidden file. The research team has archived project.x, which is why it's a hidden file. It shouldn't have writing permissions for anyone, but the user and group should be able to read the file. So let's go to project X. Let's see. Should not have write permissions for anyone. That's successful. There's no writing permissions anywhere. The user and the group should be able to read the file. Fortunately, that's already accounted for. So we have RR. Fill in a command to assign project the appropriate authorization. And that's done as well. So ultimately, like we did here, we would do chmod. There was a missing, or there was a writing permission. We would do whichever subset had the writing permission minus W to remove the writing permissions. If any of them were missing the reading permissions, we would very simply just do that subset plus R and then the name of the file. We'll go on to step 7, change directory permissions. The directories in the projects directory are only belonging to researcher 2. So only researcher 2 should be allowed to access the drafts directory for its contents. So how would we do this? Let's start with looking at the drafts. So right now, the user only has reading, writing, and execute permissions. And that should be everything. So cap that off. This is my Linux portfolio project. This is not sponsored, but it is done through Google Cybersecurity Professional Certificate course. And this is my demonstration of my competency with Linux.